one woman, a venture capitalist. What's a venture capitalist? A venture capitalist, grows companies and raises money for companies. When she characterized what money meant to her, she used words like, money scares me. I don't feel comfortable around it. And so I decided to dig into the why. Why are women, high-achieving women, well-educated women even, why are they not in control of their finances? And they know they should be involved. Like, I knew I should be involved, but I just wasn't. As I looked into it, I found out the why women are like this. And then I looked into the how women can flip the switch and change.
And we're back. All right, guys, today we have Alison Kosik, who you might recognize as a longtime face of Wall Street CNN. She is an incredible broadcaster, but really has stepped into her role of an author and really shedding light on a big problem of women not understanding their finances and being left in the dark.
There's so much to unpack, and we're excited to get into it, but we always like to start at kind of the beginning of your story, of kind of where you got started, maybe something that inspired you to bring you to where you are now.
The situation in my own marriage. And the irony that I was on CNN as its business correspondent reporting from the New York Stock Exchange on most days. But in my own life, I wasn't involved in my own financial life. I let my husband handle all things financial. And that was actually one of the biggest mistakes of my life, because when the marriage started going bad, and because I relied on him to do all the financial things, I felt stuck. I stayed in the marriage years longer than I should have, because I didn't have the confidence to make those big financial decisions. I didn't think I had the good judgment, or the knowledge to actually actively make those financial decisions, because I hadn't actively had the experience of making those decisions. And of course, I had 2 kids under the age of 10 at the time. And the thinking was, well, what if I made a mistake and lost all of our money? And so when I finally got through all of that, I realized that a lot of women feel like I felt. And whether you're on the income scale of your high income or the low income scale, whether you're married or divorced, widowed, even single, I found a lot of women related to my story that they were either relying on somebody else for their finances, or they were just flat out avoiding it because they didn't know where to start. They had that overwhelmed feeling. And it's not something that women readily talk about, because it's embarrassing. There's a lot of shame around it. And we don't want to be judged by our peers and be viewed as unintelligent. And it doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean we're incompetent or incapable. It just means we're not confident. And so that's why I set out to write the book. I want to, help women not make the same mistakes I made. I want to help them with that overwhelming feeling and try to whittle down exactly what you have to do to start getting your toes wet and gain that confidence. And also try to change the money conversation that women are having around money as well.
What is the change of conversation that you really want?
I think that for many women, the conversation about money is shrouded in mystery, in misunderstanding and fear. And Emma Greed, who wrote the foreword to my book, talked about this. And it is, there's a lot of cultural impact on women. Women and girls are socialized differently. Like, for example, and it's not something that maybe parents do, consciously, but boys and girls are raised differently. Many times, boys are told that they have to be more financially independent early. They're also shown the finances earlier than girls in life. And so with girls not involved, that can lead to women not involved in making money decisions. And that's avoidance. And that avoidance can be compounding. That avoidance can lead to fear. And that fear can lead to a lack of interest in the topic. And the lack of interest can lead to a lack of information, which leads to a lack of confidence in being able to make those important money decisions, like managing your money, the base level of personal financing, of budgeting, of investing, of negotiating your salary. So your confidence is cut early on. And it's not that your parents are bad parents. It's just that a lot of times this is how it is. It's the culture. And Sheryl Sandberg said it well. She said, when it's the culture, it's really ingrained, and it's hard to shake sometimes when the culture is like that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's so relatable. I think so many people experience that and can relate to your story. But I'm curious, how did you go from journalism and what you were doing into becoming this advocate and author and really being able to make that transition? What did that look like?
I really felt passionate about it. The fact that I had to stay in that marriage years longer than I should have. I had looked around, and I did look around at many books, not to plug my book, but to plug my book. But I looked around, and there were a lot of books out there with the financial tips that it's like what I have, how to budget, how to build up your credit, how to pay down debt, how to negotiate. But the one thing these books didn't have is, okay, I'll buy this book and it says I should do all these steps, but who am I to think I can actually do them? Like, I'm still not confident. Like, I can't do this stuff. And so I decided to dig into the why. Why are women, high achieving women, well educated women even, why are they not in control of their finances? And they know they should be involved. Like, I knew I should be involved, but I just wasn't. And I wanted to look into that. And as I looked into it, I found out the why women are like this. And then I looked into the how women can flip the switch and change. And that's what I wanted to put out there to help women to change and then to feel confident enough to actually take the actionable steps that I then put in the book.
So what's the why and what's the how?
Part of the why is I think we're busy. Listen, we have our own careers, we've got our kids. The last thing we want to do when we go home is learn this financial literacy stuff. Who has the brain power? Who has the energy? Yeah. It's exhausting. But the other part of it is what I mentioned is the cultural and the socialization that women go through is, women are made to believe that, finances and money are this sort of intimidating, confusing thing that's not something that's in our domain. Like, oh, no, that's not our domain. And it is. And the way to flip the switch is to first see where you got your money beliefs from. And so is it the culture? Is it how you were raised? Is it even just by watching your parents? Did they charge everything on their credit cards and you come to think that it's okay? And so there are steps to actually free yourself from that mindset, because it's a mindset that's been in you since you've been a little kid, whether you believe it or not. Yeah. And there is a way to shake that. And a lot of it is actually visualization, which I thought was bullshit when I interviewed this one financial psychologist. But he said there's an actual study showing that visualizing that goal to get your money act together really is effective. And I was like, wow, he wowed me.
I love that. I feel like, visualization is like the key to it all, right? That's like what manifestation is getting like so clear and being able to create it in your mind first, and then you see it in your reality. Yeah. So as you kind of went through and got all these experts' opinions and found out kind of the really root cause of why women were having these money issues, what were maybe some of the other things that were coming up that really surprised you or maybe most women wouldn't know?
So in addition to giving tips and tools and the mechanics, I did lots of interviews because I wanted to do this book kind of through a journalist lens. I did lots of research for it. I did lots of interviews. And I was surprised to learn that really, really smart women were not involved at all. And once again, they knew that what they should be doing, but they weren't involved. One woman, a venture capitalist. What's a venture capitalist? A venture capitalist, grows companies and raises money for companies. But when she characterized what money meant to her, she used words like, "Money scares me. I don't feel comfortable around it. It's not. I don't know what I'm doing around it. I don't know where to start." And this woman was sobbing to me on the phone. We were both crying. I was crying for her. She had such shame because she was a super successful venture capitalist, driving around in the BMW and dressed to the nines. In her own personal life, she didn't have it together. And it was it was like watching myself in the mirror, sort of. And at 53 years old, she had yet to open up a retirement account for herself. She didn't know the basics of budgeting and didn't know anything about personal finance. Wow. Another example of a woman I interviewed for the book, and I called these the cautionary tales of these women. Another woman is in the C-suite of some of the biggest companies in the world and helped CEOs make billion-dollar decisions, and she had no idea her financial house is collapsing, that she just found out, in fact, I just learned this, that her family owes $1 million in back taxes because she was not involved. Not being the checks and balance in your household is really dangerous. And that's one thing I wanted to point out and one reason why I interviewed women for the cautionary tale part. meaning to show the bad outcomes that happen when you're not involved in the finances in your household. You need to have full visibility of what you're spending your money on, how much debt are you carrying, where are your assets? Do you know what the passwords are to all of your accounts? Who are the beneficiaries on your accounts? Have you checked lately? Are you making sure that they are who they are? Who they are? What do your life insurance policies say? Like, these are all things you need to be visible on, and these are all stories that were told through the eyes of these women, many of whom cried to me on the phone while I did these interviews, of the things you need to be involved in because those are the bad outcomes.
Wow, that's fascinating. How did you choose who you were going to interview?
I was very lucky. I got hooked up with a woman who works with a lot of women who were just not involved. And the sad thing is that she called me the other day. She says they just keep coming. She says what's really upsetting is that they sit for the Zoom appointment with her. She's a certified financial planner. The woman sits with the husband for the meeting, and the woman sits off the camera. She's afraid to be on the camera. And these are pediatricians, these are lawyers, these are women who are in tech. I mean, smart women, but they suddenly, something happens when the conversation starts to talk about money. They literally don't even sit in the Zoom. They sit off to the side and they let the husband do all the talking. This still exists. Like, we think that this is our grandparents or this is our parents. This stuff exists, and these are women who are millennial women. They're Gen Z women. They're older women, and when I say that they're women of all ages, I really mean it. She calls me, this CPA who I got all this certified financial planner. She calls me all the time, telling me I have more women for you. I said the book's already written, but keep me up to date on what's going on. Let me know if you see a trend that starts to steer differently. But she's not seeing that. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it really sheds light, I think, truly on the problem, like you're saying, that really is this emotional tie that we have with money, and that we really have this kind of blockage, I think, a lot of us with it. So as you were kind of doing these interviews, what were some of maybe the resolutions that people came to, or were they still stuck and lost, or were you kind of trying to guide them?
I think that one of the things that a lot of the women told me was that they would be more involved now, but sadly, a lot of the damage was already done. I mean, even there's a chapter on estate planning that I wrote, and one woman sadly had 2 kids and had found out 2 years prior that the husband had colon cancer. 2 years, and in the 2 years, they did not make a will or an estate plan up until the last few days before he took a turn for the worse. And she told me the story that it was a few days before the husband died where he took a real turn for the worse. She called up the lawyer and said, "Get the papers now, we need to sign." And he got there too late because the husband died. And sadly, she only found out after that he had not taken out enough life insurance to cover her kids and her. She was out of work. And even worse, the investment account, one of the investment accounts, he left all the money to his brother, who she does not have a relationship with. And so she now has to somehow dive back into the workforce after being out of work. Her kids were young, so she'd been out of the workforce at least 5 to 7 years, and figure out how to make a living for herself. And that's another suggestion I give in the book is if you're a woman who has young kids and you feel like you're taken care of by your husband, great. But you really need to keep your toe in the water in your career somewhere. Keep it going, because life is not guaranteed. You know, you're living in bliss now, great, but things can turn on a dime, and you have to always have that proverbial plan B in your head. And that means keeping yourself as a woman in your career in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just a little bit to take care of, maybe it takes care of a couple bills. Maybe it even doesn't, but it's important to stay active in your career.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I feel like so many learning lessons from this. If we are maybe there's people listening to this, they're not involved at all. They're like, oh my gosh, I think that's me. I think she's talking about me and I'm scared. I know you gave some tips earlier, like get the passwords, like be a part of that process. But do you have like like a structure of, I'm like such a structure person of like what that should look like. Should we sit down, have a family meeting like once a month? Should we have a just meeting with ourselves, and what numbers should we be looking at? Like, any thoughts there of people that could give some tangibles, like, okay, do this and you're on your way in a positive direction?
Oh, I would absolutely say have weekly money meetings with your
Okay.
spouse, or with if you just live alone.
Yeah.
Have a weekly money session with yourself. Look over what your spending has been over, let's say, the previous week. Look at what you're expected to spend on the next week. If you're invested, hopefully you are. Look at your investment accounts. If you're not involved in that and someone else, like your husband or your significant other, is handling those accounts, know what the passwords are. If the passwords change, find out how that whole password thing, is there a password manager that's being used? Do you have estate documents done? Where are those documents sitting? Who has them? Who's your lawyer?
What if you get met with like resistance? What do you do?
I say push forward. That was some of what I heard from some of these women who I interviewed, and it was so frustrating to hear that they could not get the husband to see that they need to be involved. If you get met with resistance, say, I can't guarantee that you're not going to get hit by a bus tomorrow, and neither can you. And would you want me to be without money? Would you want me to not know where to start to look for everything all at once? If you have kids, our kids are involved in this. It's not just you. I think you really have to make them realize that it's a family thing. It's not a his thing, and that it's important, even if he's in private equity. One of the examples was a private equity guy who made the whole financial house crumble down. But you need those checks and balances. What is he investing in? Are you sure that it should all be put in Bitcoin? No.
Yeah, it really sounds like awareness, right? And like open communication, being able to have some sort of system, some sort of something in place to be able to kind of have that consistency.
Absolutely.
We had a client that made Money Mondays her thing. And I loved it. And I was like, that's cute. Like, have a Money Monday. So whatever works for you. But I like that. I like having kind of that system in place to be able to kind of check back, and being able to have that power, I think, is how you take your personal power back too and build that confidence. Because I think the more you know, the more you kind of feel solid and stable, and you're radiating confidence.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting to think about this if you're like, wait, well, I'm not married, it's just me and I'm an entrepreneur. And, I think this applies a lot to the world of business too.
For sure.
Even running your own business and giving somebody else the power to run your books and do your bookkeeping and file your taxes.
Almost even more so.
Yeah. And and making sure that you could apply all of this to your business too, of whoever your money person is in your business, are they the ones that only know it? What if they got hit by a bus tomorrow? What would you do?
And I'm going to say it, you can't trust, just like you can't trust, listen, I did it because I completely trusted my husband, and I still would if I was married to him. But there needs to be a check and balance, and you need to be involved. And just like if you have someone managing your money, you need to know what they're investing in. Nowadays, it's all online. Show me what you're invested in, how many shares. Oh, and by the way, what's your fee? Understand the fee structure. You may be surprised that a lot of your money, that the commission, if it's commission based, they may be making a ton of money that you're not aware of. Know the fee that you're
What's
whoever's
a
managing
fee
money
that we should be looking for? What's standard? What's good? What's not good?
So I don't have anybody manage my money. I do
Why?
it myself because I can do it myself. Because I once upon a time didn't know how to do it, and now I know how to do it. I taught myself. But I feel comfortable, finding it, let's say, for example, an index fund that doesn't have a fee that's over, 1%. And I really look for anything. I look for something less than 0.5%. So I'm thinking 0.3% is what I go for. That I don't feel like, and there are, by the way, if you Google it, there are ways to find non-commission based certified financial planners, and that's important too. So if you don't know where to start, Google non-commission certified financial planners. They're actually organizations that have lists of people who you can go to.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. That's super helpful. I feel like a lot of people kind of do get overwhelmed when it comes to this, and it helps to have a person to like be able to kind of guide you through it.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you need to be making like a certain amount of money before you even think about something like that?
You mean investing?
Yeah.
No. There's something called fractional investing, and which wasn't around when I started investing so long ago. And not all investing platforms allow it. But let's say a share is $500 and you've got $50 ready to invest. You can buy a fractional share of that investment and voila, you're invested. Hopefully you're going to go for something that is in a tax-advantaged account, either in a Roth or a traditional IRA, and invest that way. Fractional investing is fantastic. I was so excited when it started. What's funny is it started in the 90s, but we really didn't start doing it until recently.
Until the apps and things.
Yeah,
made it easy.
yeah. Definitely the apps and the online platforms have made it so easy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like it really is a whole new world and people are kind of navigating through figuring it out. But I'm curious, I want to take it back to publishing your book and kind of what that process was like, because I know you kind of made the leap from being a journalist into being an author. And so what was kind of your route of doing that, or what did that look like? I know you did it out of like the inspiration and coming from your story, but what was the actual process like?
Yeah, and so it did come from my personal story, and that's great and everything, and I thought first of all, I thought no one else feels the same way I do, or maybe they do. And then I was thinking, well, there are a lot of books out there that have financial literacy tips. Why is mine going to be any different? Should I even bother setting out on this journey? And so I looked up some of the top financial authors of books. I was able to get a hold of two. I found out what their numbers are. I used my little journalism skills. I called them up and emailed them, and I asked them, should I even write this book? I mean, you wrote the book. Should I even bother? And both times I said, I got a yeses from both of them saying, we need to have just more information out there. And I said, but this stuff seems so basic, what I want to write. And they said, make it basic, because women are not admitting what they don't know.
Yeah.
And I learned that as well. And so I was like, okay, so if I write this really basic, am I going to look stupid? And they're like, no, we need this out there. I was like, thank you. Okay. And so and that was the first step. And so I wrote the proposal once. And I found a literary agent, wrote the proposal. Actually, let me rephrase this. I wrote one page, sent that to a literary agent, and someone picked me up. Then I wrote the proposal once. And then I wound up rewriting the proposal because it wasn't quite good. And so I spent probably a good 2.5 years writing proposals. Finally got it where it needed to be.
What is a proposal for? Like a proposal for a publisher? Is that what
Yeah, it's so exactly. I had no idea. And there was this whole structure that you had to do. It had, the different parts. You have to find books that are sort of your competitors and write why yours fits into this mix and why it doesn't, and why this appeals, and it was a process. And then to have to rewrite it again, I was like, oh my gosh, kill me now. But I was like, is this really worth it? But there's like a whole template sort of that apparently is used in the publishing industry to get a traditional publisher, and I wanted to go the traditional publisher route just because I wanted to. And so I rewrote it, and then we pitched it, and Harriman House, a division of Pam Macmillan, a UK-based publisher, picked it up. And then I had to write the book, and I had 11 months to write it, which is funny because I had less time to write it than I did to write the proposals. But I was ready already because I felt like I had already written the book. And I found out that I was my brain started really thinking when it turned evening. So I would basically start to write. I'd put on CNBC, and the Shark Tank reruns would be on, and I'd put it on silent. For some reason, that gave me incentive. I was like, every now and then, if I saw something
in front of the sharks,
every now and then I need a break, I would just put the volume back up and listening, and be like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing this, and put the volume back down and keep writing. So I'd start to write it around 8:00 at night with the reruns on TV, and then I'd probably go till 3 a.m. and did this most days. Wow. And during the day, I would spend a lot of time thinking, and I realized a lot of writing a book is actually thinking about it. And I would, talk to my fiance about it and brainstorm with him. And I would just go on lots of walks by myself, with a friend or with him. And the walking really worked a lot out in my mind. Well, how am I going to work through this and make it fun to read and relatable? Because these topics can get dry, financial literacy topics, and I wanted to make them fun and accessible and relatable so someone wants to read it so they can help themselves. That's the whole point of me writing this book, is I want to help women not make the same mistakes. And so I would work things out as I'm walking around. I realized I'm doing a lot of thinking in my head and not so much writing. But once I finished those walks, I would get right back to the computer and I'd be able to write it out really fast, which was crazy.
Yeah,
So that's my writing tip of the day. Go on lots of walks, and you'll be able to write faster. At least in my case, that's what happened.
I like that. It's like almost like clearing the blocks out of your head first and like getting really clear on exactly what you want to say, and then you come back even more refreshed.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Wow, what a process it seems like to go down that journey. If you, as you look back and now that you're in the process of launching the book and getting it out into the world, anything that you would have done differently?
I probably would have had more confidence in myself. Confidence seems to be a running theme in my life. I think the more confidence thing, just to feel better about as I was writing it. I had moments of, I shouldn't be doing this. This is that whole imposter syndrome thing. Who am I to write this book? And then the thinking that no one's going to read it is always a fear and continues to be a fear. But maybe we all go through a little of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's real, right? Everyone can relate to it. So what is maybe something that you've used, like any mantras or practices, tools that you've used to help you kind of counteract that and get through it?
I think, believe it or not, the feedback that I'm getting is helping. I'm getting DMs on Instagram and on X of women who said, that was me. One woman said, that was me in 2006. I didn't handle any of my financial stuff. And she said, I'm a CPA. And I was like, wow,
crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy, right? It's I don't know what it is. And yeah, I think the feedback I'm getting from people who are reading the book is helping, and it seems to be positive. It seems to be that I was onto something, that it wasn't just me, that a lot of women are going through what I went through, and it really does give me joy to know that I feel like I've tapped into something that other women can relate to, and I feel like I can actually help them, which is really invigorating and makes me excited that I could actually help somebody, which is what I really wanted to do in the first place.
Right. I'm sure that you're going into, you said fiance or getting married. I'm going into this relationship maybe a little bit different than your first one.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about money all the time, and I'm definitely stronger about being involved. And I want him to be involved as well. I mean, he is involved, but I definitely want to be. I'm expecting to be more involved.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Amazing. Well, any words of wisdom or piece of advice that you would want to leave anybody listening with?
I just want to say to anybody who's listening to really do your best to be involved and have a really good visibility on your finances in your household. And don't avoid what you know deep down you should be doing. And if you're young, Sydney, I'm talking to you, my daughter. Just because you earn the money doesn't mean you have to spend all of it. The point in budgeting is the basic platform to getting your financial shit together is take the pot of money that you're earning on your paycheck and you have to split it up. You have to split it up into obviously your bills and your emergency savings account that's hopefully somewhere between 6 and 9 months. That's living expenses and emergencies. Make sure that you are putting some money towards your future life, investing, because if you're in your 20s or even 30s, you think you have your whole life, and you do. But if you start investing early, that compounding effect, you'll really see it as you consistently invest every year, every month, hopefully. You'll see that effect over time. And so I'm really encouraging women to just be involved. Get in there and invest. You don't have to have it 100% figured out. You don't have to be an expert. Women, we think that we have to be experts at everything before we dive in. Learn the basics and just dive in.
Such good pieces of wisdom there. What is your next big move?
That's a really good question. I wrote this book, and I don't know where life's going to take me. And this is the first time in my life I literally have no plan. It's scary, I'm hoping that the book opens new doors for me.
Well, thank you so much for giving
Thanks
us
for having
all the
me.
knowledge nuggets you did today. And there's even more in the book, so we're all excited to dive in. and hear more from you.
Yeah, we'll link everything in the description below. And Alison, thank you. Bye.
Bye.